What has been described as the most complete mountain bike world championship, the Enduro World Series is heading into its 8th year. It challenges the riders completely, from technical skills, pure strength and fitness to mechanical ability. It takes a talented bike rider to get anywhere on the EWS circuit. Diverse in the nature of the mountains, hills and trails raced upon, the series shines the light on local mountain bike communities around the world. And the big news this year is that the EWS comes to GMBN. We have the course previews plus all the racing action of the weekend. And today we've got Rick from the EWS here to talk us through why the EWS is so exciting, a bit of its history and what to look forward to this year.
Thank you very much, Neil. Lovely to be here again. Yeah, basically we have got what is, don't just take my word for it, the most exciting year of EWS racing that I think we've had to date. Plus, on top of all that, we've got the second ever Trophy of Nations at the end of the season. We've got EWS-E, our new e-bike format, and both championships up for grabs and the team's title race. There's a lot to get through, but it should be brilliant.
So let's give you the complete guide to the Enduro World Series. With typically 8 rounds a year all around the world, the EWS has been as far afield as Chile, Colombia, New Zealand, Tasmania, the European Alps and British Columbia. Talk us through the format, Rick, for anyone new to the sport.
Well, Enduro, I guess the simplest way to explain it is it's like a car rally. The riders leave the race village in the morning, they have a predetermined long loop which will take them out all day, and along that loop there are liaison sections which are pedaling sections, and there are timed stages. Now the cumulative time from these timed stages forms the overall leaderboard, and that is who wins the race.
And one of the interesting things I think about Enduro World Series is how good the riders have to be to adapt to the trails and the conditions really quickly, because whilst you walk the tracks, you can only have one practice run.
Yeah, that's right. You can walk the track as you would be able to at a downhill race. You can go and walk down the stages, but you only get one run actually on the bike. It's a recent development that we brought in over the last couple of years, and what that has forced riders to do, you see a lot of them wearing POV cameras and really tightening down on those little details, watching a lot of video, trying to learn as much as they can. Some even ride on race day with those cameras with them so they can sit at the top of stages and remind themselves. It's a mind game as much as a physical game.
And how long are the races?
The races can be 1 or 2 days long. Now that's interesting as well. Some riders like that slower burn of a 2-day race. Others prefer the all or nothing, all out 1 day.
And whilst obviously it's a big physical test and of the rider's skills, it's also a bit of a mental game. It's a really tough thing to try and not only put one race together. We've seen it with overalls as well. Florian Nicolai last year, winning the season, pretty much the championship the whole way to the end of the season, and Sam Hill taking it off him at the very last round. Also, we've seen races like Greg Callahan throw away a win on the final day.
Yeah, poor Greg. It's not nice to mention, but Neil mentioned it, not me. But what happened in Derby in Tasmania the first time we went there, Greg was comfortably in the lead of the race, and he actually said to me at the start of the stage that you can't win it on this final stage, but you can definitely lose it. 7's
real short, you're not going to win the race, but you can certainly lose it there.
Lo and behold, he crashed in the corner. He lost 2 days worth of, right competitive riding. That's how tight, I mean, that was 3 or 4 years ago now. The level now is so much higher.
And it's obviously super hard to win a championship. We've also got the Queen stage. How does that work into the race series?
The Queen stage is very simple. There are overall points up for grabs only for the winners of that one stage. Now, 40 points doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, last year we saw the men's championship, Sam Hill versus Florian Nicolai, come down to just a handful of points, so they're worth winning. They typically tend to be the toughest test of the weekend. Now that might mean they're the longest, it might mean they're the most technical, But generally, once we've ridden the course, spoken to local organisers, you know what the tough one's going to be, you know what the Queen stage is going to be.
And obviously the riders are still going for time. This is going to add up to their overall time, but they're really going big guns to try and get those 40 extra points at every single round.
Yeah, I mean, it all adds up at the end of the year, and as last year was a prime example, Sam, Florian, in Zermatt, it came down to very, very little.
So whilst the pros are well catered for at EWS, we also have races for the amateurs to get involved with.
Yeah, we have EWS 80 and EWS 100, which are 80% and 100% of the course length, but it's more about completing the day, having your biggest day on the bike ever with your friends. And I think a lot of people are surprised actually when they come to an EWS race that it's not a pro-only affair. Do you know what I mean? That there are 90% of the people there are amateurs enjoying it, having a beer at the finish line.
And those amateurs get to ride and race on the very same stages as the pros, their favourite pros.
Yeah, I mean, that's unique, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That you can't turn up to a World Cup race of any kind and race on the same track as your favourite riders, whereas at the EWS, it's, I mean, yeah, who knows, you might beat Sam Hill.
Well, yeah, it's like, yeah.
I kind of feel that you have a better chance of doing that than
well, I absolutely know that I won't. I've been there and done that and haven't. But it's really interesting to see how somewhere like Whistler, the huge entry you get, all people riding around with those number plates, racing on those very same tracks.
And those are like, you know, those are like, they're big, difficult stages. They're hard things, and the level of excitement you see at the bottom of them from the amateurs, it's really like, I think it's why people get into mountain bike racing, really.
The racing can be super punishing on bikes, almost like riding downhill tracks on an enduro bike. So not only is it physical, it's really technical, riders also have to manage their bikes.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting facet of the sport. Now, if you're at the bottom of the stages, the first thing that will impress you is how strong the modern enduro mountain bike is. But when it goes wrong, the flip side of that is it goes very wrong. Now, riders can get help from their teams, but that tends to be once a day in a designated tech or feed zone. The only other people who can help you out on the stages are other riders. Now, that brings up a whole different psychological dimension to it.
I also think that's got to be unique in sport, probably, to enduro racing. Well, you saw it last year where Martin Mays was helping his title rival, Sam Hill, fix a puncture at the bottom of the stage. You don't often see that.
No, I mean, that's those two, I mean, we go off ranking, so like the guys higher in the ranking are the last out the start line. Sam was the last man on the stage, and he was followed down the stage by this wave of fans. He had a front puncture, he crossed the line in 128th, I think. And the man waiting there for him was Martin Mays, his title rival, who'd heard that he was in trouble. We all assumed he was just making sure that it was a lot of trouble. It wasn't. It was to help him fix it and make sure he had everything he needs. By the end of the year, Sam came back to 12th or something in that round and then won the title. So it all adds up again, but at the same time, you don't want to be the person who rides away because you might be in need of help.
It's pretty amazing. Obviously, there's a lot of fans there, but the fans can't help. You've got to rely on yourself or someone else who's in the race. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting psychological thing, as I say, because there's definitely an unspoken cut-off point when riders will go, right, I now need to have to get on with my race. So it's interesting.
So racers have to put a stick out on their frame, fork and a pair of wheels. If they replace any of those parts, it's a 3-minute penalty. Rick, tell me about the sort of riding it is.
Well, as I said before, it is absolutely a bit of everything you could hope to face on a mountain bike. We have an urban stage in Colombia and through the centre of Manizales. It's unlike anything else we do. 30,000 screaming fans lining the streets of the city and insanely high speeds. We then move to Chile, where we have a stage called Parvaso, which is still the longest stage in EWS history at 12 kilometers long, high up in the high Andes. Not much oxygen up there, and some of the world's best riders were passing each other multiple times during the single stage. Kamagutsa, which won our Specialised Trail of the Year award last year in the Blue Derby Trail Network in Tasmania. It's like literally everything you could think of riding on a mountain bike, back to back. An absolutely thrilling trail. And then of course, the Enduro World Series really was born in Finale Ligure, and men's DH there, one of the oldest tracks in the region, just descends down those white limestone cliffs, and it's, crowds 5 or 6 people deep, lining the whole thing going crazy. It's a little bit of everything.
On to the physical demands. I've been lucky enough to race a handful of my time. I can tell you it's a big, hard couple of days out. In the case of the Peebles round in Scotland a few years back, it's 2 50k days. So you've got 2 days of practice, 2 days of racing, so that's 200 kilometres. Good at maths, got an A level. And obviously there's lots of sprint stages in there, so it's absolutely killer. These racers have got to be very skillful and very fit.
Yeah, I think that's something that the longer you're around the EWS, the more you're aware of. It's just critically about time management, a lot of it, and like the amount of time they spend on the bikes is absolutely huge, but also it's all the stuff that you're doing when you're not on the bike. It's, you know, it's making sure you have dinner at the right time, you have massage at the right time, and you just absolutely maximize every minute that you're there to producing fast stage times.
Have you seen that develop in the last few years as Enduro World Series has matured? Have the riders become more savvy about those things?
Definitely think so, and actually, you know, you talk to a lot of riders now, they want to have a small team. They want to be on a smaller team and be a big rider on a smaller team, because that means that's fewer people at the airport, that's fewer people getting cars, that's fewer people at meal times. It's just absolutely chipping away at all those things. And I think as well, the speeds, even in the 3 years since I've been covering it, the speeds have increased exponentially. I think there's no more of this. Whenever Enduro first came out, there was this sort of myth of it was all about being safe and riding at 80%, and with one run of practice, nobody's riding safe.
There must be a huge variety in the destinations, but also the types of trails you race over the year.
Yeah, that's what I think really makes it the complete test of a mountain bike. And I mean, you know, you go to all these places in the world, and the local organisers and the local governing bodies, all the sponsors, the local media, everyone just gets behind it because they see how many people are there on their bikes. And it really becomes a real sort of source of pride that they can showcase their trails in front of an international audience.
One of the interesting parts about enduro racing is you can buy a bike off the shelf that's totally capable of racing EWS, whereas other mountain bike races, you're looking at buying a specialist race bike. This is a big factor why many first-time riders go out and try enduro rather than any other forms of mountain bike racing. It's also why the industry is pretty keen to get behind this, because they're selling the bikes that are being raced at the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a massive part of enduro. I mean, it's that old adage, isn't it? Win on a Sunday, sell on a Monday. And if you look at the style of bikes that are being raced, full suspension, around about 150mm travel plus, we're seeing longer and longer travel in enduro. Long slack geometry, big brakes, soft compound tyres. I mean, those are the bikes we all ride anyway.
And for the most part, 29ers, I suppose. Martin May's running the mullet setup most of last year.
Yeah, that was kind of, I mean, it was the golden age of the mullet, wasn't it? It was the start of last year, and everybody thought everyone would shift to that in enduro, but we didn't really see it. And I think one of the key aspects of that is just the efficiency of those big wheels over a long day of racing. It's hard to knock, really, and unless it works for you the way it seems to work for Martin, but then lots of things seem to work well for Martin at the minute.
What about the type of riders that have won the EWS?
Well, there are a few people who have won an EWS championship, but when you look at their backgrounds, they've all come from very different places. Tracy Mosley, Sam Hill, both downhill legends. Jared Graves, a four-cross legend, also raced a lot of downhill. He's a BMXer at the Olympics. And then Cecile Ravenel from Cross Country Eliminator, of all things, if you remember that. But what's really interesting at the minute is that we're starting to see that first generation of out-and-out, dyed-in-the-wool professional enduro racers come through. Adrian Day, that sort of riders really at the forefront of that.
And it's cool for me to see someone, a brilliant talent like Martin Mays, who can seemingly go and win anything, World Cup downhill, that he chooses that his sport is enduro.
Yeah, and we saw it with Richie Rude as well, of course. He
Junior World Champion.
Junior World Champion.
Downhill
in Peter Maritzburg, wasn't it? But yet, you know, an Enduro World Series double world champion. So it attracts all different kinds of riders. I think if you look, the one thing they've got in common is that they're all riders who see that attraction in being the best after 2 solid days of racing.
Absolutely, and it doesn't seem to suit a body type, you could say, either. If you compare your Sam Hills, your Richie Rudes, you know, it seems that anyone can be fast at enduro.
Yeah, I think it's all about being really economical with what you've got and really efficient. And I mean, Adrian Day, stand him beside Richie Rude, like, he looks like a key ring that Richie may have, but at the same time, Richie's style and the speed he can carry through things works really, really well for him, and that's kind of what makes a lot of the racing so interesting.
An interesting series last year, especially in the men's, where I say Sam Hill didn't win a round last year, but obviously took that championship. His 3rd consecutive one, so at the moment he is the man to beat at enduro. Yeah,
100%. Sam Hill, I mean, yeah, you get the initial sort of naysayers who say he didn't win a round last year, but I mean, I'm a bit of a Sam Hill geek, but I think last year is one of his most interesting performances in that he just keeps chipping away. Sam, if you look at the year on paper, he doesn't drop around.
He doesn't crack, does he?
No, like even whenever the chips are down, he's had one every championship year basically. He's had that one race where it doesn't happen. He gets a mechanical, he can't get it fixed. He'll finish the second stage, like we said before, in 130th or whatever. But he'll come back, and you come back into the points, and then a rival will crash, blow up a bike, write that round off. Sam doesn't do that.
And in the women's race, Cecile Ravenel's dominated sport for 3 years. Unfortunately, she got an injury in training before last year. So obviously that completely opened up that race, and Isabeau Cadore took advantage of that and completely dominated last year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the list of women to have dominated in Enduro, it's even smaller again. You've got Tracy Mosey 3 years, Cecile Ravenel 2 years, and now Isabeau. Isabeau last year never put a foot wrong. She was perfect all year. The bike looked like it worked fantastically well underneath her. She had that thing where she looked like... You find this with Enduro. Martin May started last year with it. Whenever they're winning comfortably, they just seem so relaxed, so in control. They found that speed. Isabeau will be hard to beat this year.
But new horizons for Isabeau. She's moved teams to Lapierre Zip Collective, which looks like a really strong team, a young French team with Chloe Gallion and Adrian Dailly, led by the downhill legend of Nicolas Vouillot.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It feels like that's a good move, although an interesting move when she won everything last year to change bikes.
Yeah, no reigning Enduro World Series champion has ever moved sponsor into the next year.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
And normally if a rider does that, we've seen it of course in downhill multiple times with Aaron Gwynn, but it brings with it pressures, and there is a slight alarm bell going, but I don't get that from Isabeau being on Lapierre. I think we had to wait quite late in the off season for it to be announced, but it's a fast bike. Nico's helped develop it. Adrian's about as fast as they get. He'll be fully fit this year from that shoulder injury, so he'll be back at the races again. That just looks like a great setup, so I'm not worried about that.
Notable others, we are actually doing a full video preview of the race series coming up this year, but I think people like Eddie Masters, we've got to mention, he's been super fast, had a wrist injury last year. Richie Rude, obviously, Martin Mays had their own issues by winning races and giving up races last year as well.
I genuinely think this year is set perfectly. It's the most excited I've been, especially about the men's competition, because I just think the depth of talent is so deep in it. And you've got Sam Hill, a defending three-time champion, so you're not going to question his credentials as a favourite. Behind him, you've got Mays, you've got Rude. Both won races towards the end of last year. Both are they're on the comeback trail. They've got a point to prove. Florian Nicolai, second in the world last year. You can't discount him. Eddie Masters won a race last year, has proved that he can beat the world's best on his day. But then you've got another tier of rider again. You've got the Jesse Melameds in there who won rounds before. Greg Callahan's won rounds before. It just feels like it's a powder keg at the minute, and it's set to go off, hopefully.
In the women's race, we're hoping to see a return of Cecile Ravenel. Otherwise, we've got Isabeau Cadore still, of course. Any other names you mentioned there?
Well, Noga Carême took Queen stages off Isabeau Cadore last season. Andriana Lanfey-Nadeau as well had some big results out on the stages. She'll be one to watch out for. Noga had a crash in training in pre-season where she went face first into a pipe. She didn't see, which, I mean, I spoke to her team manager, Martin Morrison, the following day, and one of the first things he said was that there's nothing seriously broken. She's not broken an arm, broken a leg, collarbone. So I think Noga is really the rider that's going to take it to Isabeau, but ALM, Morgan Shaw, Rafaela Richter, they're all in amongst it as well.
Okay, so aside from the individual championship, we also have the team championship.
If you come to an Enduro World Series race, the last podium we do is the team's podium, and it's a big family thing. Everyone's up there, mechanics are up there. It's a big sort of travelling family, but it's starting to get an edge to it. That team's championship matters now, and you look at the brands that are, the brands that have the big teams, the Canyons, the Ibis, Chain Reaction, Mavic, Cube, Rocky Mountain, they all want to win this. This is a big deal.
And they want their bike to be on that top step, of course. Aside from that 8-round series, we also have something that debuted last year, the Trophy of Nations at Finale Ligure. So this is a completely different sort of race.
Yeah, I mean, the Trophy of Nations, we had the first one last year, as you say, and the idea is it's really different and it's quite unique for these racers in that the top 3 racers from each nation at the end of the 7th round of the championship get to race at the Trophy of Nations. And what that actually means is that there's 3 riders in a line racing on each stage, and it's their cumulative time that goes towards the overall. Now, you have teams like Team Great Britain, Team New Zealand, Team Canada that have, good depths of field, but then you have teams like Team Belgium where you've got Martin Maes and 2 other guys that, they had an absolutely Bart de Vogt, had an incredible run of form, and they put together just like, for them it must be like falling down a lift shaft, following Martin.
It's a tough gig.
Trail. Yeah, it's a tough gig, and you're not going first in that train. But you have performances up and down, like Team Sweden as well. Alexander Kangas, great ride in finale last year. So we got the second one of those. It will be really interesting to find out how it's changed in feel from, last year it was end of season, everyone's relaxed. I think that's gone for this year. I think it's a proper race.
Also an industry class there, so I'm trying to get Blake and Rich on board. I'm pretty sure they're keen, so I'd like to show up and have a race as well.
I'm busy that weekend, so.
So, loads of stuff coming. We've also got the EWS-E e-bike racing. We'll talk about that much more over on EMBN, of course. But this is new for 2020 as well.
Yeah, we've got a 3-round e-bike series for this year. Our e-bike series, the goal we've actually come up with is to create a loop. It's still the same format, so it's still the same stage system, but the idea is that you ride a single track loop all day thanks to the increased range of an e-bike. We also have an EWS E50 race for amateurs, which is just 1 battery, so that'll be interesting as well.
Good stuff. Loads of great EWS stuff coming to the channel, of course. We've got this big preview that we are going to shoot. We're going to look at some of the history, some of the riders that have won, pick our favourites for this year. We may have to do a forfeit on who picks the worst riders, I suppose.
Can I be pixelated out for that? I don't really want to.
Fine, whatever you want. Plus, of course, it's only now 2 or 3 weeks away from the first round in Manizales in Colombia, and then backing up with the Chilean round. So we'll be there bringing you some of those course previews, plus all the highlights from the racing.